Greetings and salutations, friend. I am Jeremy Tank, and if you are watching this, I am your brand guy. What does that mean? That means you have someone on your side and in your corner to talk about the idea of brand and your brand in particular as you grow your business. There are dozens of people out there who are marketers, who are coaches, who are consultants, who pretty much will look at you and tell you who you need to be in order to grow your business. And there's a challenge in that because you can absolutely go down that route. Those people's jobs are to help you be marketable, right? Marketers especially. Their job is to help you sell what you're doing, find an easy audience, and go ahead and get things running. And that's really important if you're just starting your business. But later on, if you've been really successful, there's the whole idea that brand comes in. And your brand really is your reputation, the influence that you have from you being you towards the world around you. And there's lots of people who get to a stage of their business, they scale it really big, right? They have people working for them, and they're not happy in what they've built. And a lot of that comes down to not really understanding their core identity and what they're trying to accomplish within their brand, within their business, within all the influence that they are trying to make in the world itself. And that's a big place to try and create a lot of influence. So today, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about identity. And identity is, who you are and what you're trying to become and how you see yourself. And that's pretty dang important, right? Because if you know who you are and what you're trying to do, it is a lot easier to build the business that you want to build, to focus in the areas where you want to focus, and to do the work that is really meaningful to you, right? So the first thing is, how do we become who we are? And if you've watched some of my videos before, you've heard a lot about this before. I actually believe, because I believe in the quantum field, I believe in the quantum physics that are being revealed to us, the whole idea of wave and particle coming together, and that by observation, the waves of potential energy, the waves of the universe, the everything that could be, by observation, come into being. And this has been shown multiple times in the double slit experiment. And really what that means is that you, by being observed by the people around you throughout time, throughout essence, you have come into being. And that's the physical part of you. But there's something more than that. There's that quantum field. And the quantum field, if you imagine this, is all of the energy in the universe. And all of the energy is a lot of energy, right? If we imagine every possible positive number as well as every possible negative number and every decimal point in between, we're talking a lot of different frequencies, a lot of different energy out there. And somewhere in that energy is a combination of vibrations and frequency that creates a consciousness that is sort of a core of you. This is what I believe. And this consciousness gets bound to the physical body as it begins to, as cells begin to divide, as cells begin to specialize and fold in on themselves and create what will be you in a womb, right? So I actually think that there is this core consciousness, this greater consciousness that you are just this portion of, that you are being funneled into and filtered into, right into this physical body, and the physical body captures it because there is a resonant energy that ties it right to that core consciousness. And some people refer to this as a quantum consciousness. Some people refer to it as the God consciousness, or super consciousness. How's that one? Because it's out and above. It's this being that is you, that is beyond you. And there's a lot of thought in the metaphysical community that this is very similar to actually the God as you would identify God, right? This would be the Holy Spirit that comes into each one of us. Because there's this idea that there is an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-connected force beyond us. And that when we come down into this body, it embraces an energy that is beyond this physical form. So that's sort of this core consciousness. And I think that when this consciousness comes in, it's full of potential. Because that's that quantum field, right? It hasn't been enacted upon. It isn't something that is physically there, locked in a body, especially a fetus, especially in the womb. That's an experience, and the cells are still growing and dividing and learning and training and programming and doing all these amazing things. But there are people, there are experiences that are remembered in this time, that are felt in this time, where there is a personality, there is a concept, there is a something going on in that space. And then after birth, that consciousness remains fairly wide open and fairly available and connecting, and it's very broad, and up till about age 7, the physical brain itself remains in a theta state where it's learning, it's training, it's taking all of these experiences from a very personal, not objective, subjective experience of your path forward. Do you remember when you were a child? Do you remember what that felt like? Like, you still had your personality, you still had thoughts and feelings that were going on in your head, and dealing with the experiences of everyday life and trying to balance that between what you know, what you feel, what you think inside. Well, over time, these experiences train our fight or flight systems in a lot of ways, train us cellularly, in a very particle manner, in a very physical manner, in what to do and what not to do. And all of these things are designed in the physical realm, in the physical body, to keep us alive, to keep us surviving, to keep us as much as possible continuing forward so that the body can continue to replicate and grow. And from about 7 till 18, 22, 42, we spend the rest of that time in society absorbing what culture tells us, who we should be, how we should act, the type of people we should be around, the things we should or shouldn't do, and I know some of that for me was kind of difficult, because when I'm so I went to art school in high school. I went to a couple different art schools, and art schools are free and flowy and feely and emotional, and very experimental. And then after that, I went to the Art Institute of Phoenix, which was, I kind of view the art institutes as the factory, taking artists and wild, crazy people coming into the school and doing this whole Rubik's Cube on them and handing out people decent enough to get jobs, to hold jobs, to do the work that they're hired to do by corporations, right? And that's what happened to me. I got hired by an ad agency. From there, I got hired by the pharmaceutical corporate world. From there, I got hired by the software world. And each time I went into these places, I had to learn a new standard of behavior, a new code of conduct within that culture, and a new way to relate to people that was friendly, inoffensive, easy to get across, make sure the communication is right so that we understood each other, making sure we're using the right words, the right tone, the right language, showing the right pictures to others to make sure that we're understood as we continue forward. And this changes the identity. This changes your identity. It changed my identity because it's stacked on top of the core consciousness, on top of those basic body training, physical training that I learned up till about age 7. And this is sort of the idea that as you grow, you are still becoming. There is no solid thing that you are, and that is just it. You are constantly becoming. You are taking the training that you've had in the past. You're taking the knowledge that you hold inside of yourself. You're taking all of the things that have been familiar in your life and all the things that have been unfamiliar, and you are actively creating contrast and actively creating interpretations of the world to help guide you forward in the path that you're taking. And that's just a little bit of the way that we start to become who we are. And a lot of that is driven by our company. They say that you are the mix of the 5 people that you spend the most time around. 5. Right? Well, if you work in a corporation or if you work in an office, that's rare these days, I understand. But it changes how you see the world. It changes how you behave. It changes how you communicate. And a lot of these things, the way that I view it, is that core consciousness is still within you. It's still, that super consciousness is still guiding you, guiding who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, what you love, what the things that you really resonate with on a deep core level. And as you continue forwards in life, what you're doing is simply adding filters to it so that less and less of that open essence, that joyful childlike experience shines through, and instead you are shifting how you behave, how you interpret things so that you fit in. Because ultimately, a lot of the survival brain, a lot of the caveman brain, really just wants to fit in, wants to feel good about where you are and what you're doing, making sure that, community is one of the biggest ways that the caveman brain learned how to survive, by trusting others, by not relying simply on ourselves, by opening up and reciprocating emotions and language and sharing, because having 10 people protecting us is better than just us protecting ourselves in the caveman world. So that's sort of how you start to develop an identity, right? And the challenge comes now as we start to think, okay, that's what's got me to now. And now we have an opportunity to say, how do I see myself? And that's a challenge. Alan Watts used a lot of analogies when he would talk, and he would always say, the eye doesn't see itself, the finger doesn't touch itself, the teeth don't taste themselves. It's always something else that it has to experience. And in that way, we don't experience our own selves, our own identity, who we are. Our identity gets stuck in all of these filters, right? The things we learned when we were young, the polyvagal reactions, the fight or flight reactions, the things we felt safe in, the things we didn't feel safe in. And then that continues forward, fitting into culture, fitting into communities, fitting into a lot of that stuff. So when we look back now and say, okay, well, who am I? What does that mean? A lot of our backwards-facing memories, our backward-facing analysis is an attempt to create meaning in our lives. And that meaning, oftentimes when we're going backwards, it can be very judgmental, depending on who we think we are and the actions we should have taken in the past. And it's the comparison. Again, one of the primary functions of the brain is to compare. So when we're looking backwards and we're trying to say, well, who am I? How do I define my identity now? What does that look like now? We often use people around us. We use who we were yesterday, actions that we took to communicate to our brain, to our mind, to our senses, okay, this is what I've done. People like me do things like this, or they don't do things like this. We try to compare ourselves to create a place, an acknowledgement of who we are in the world. And that interpretation is, well, it's flawed because we are interpreting who we are through our own lens, which means we make up a lot of stories. And those stories can be anything. Like when we ask a question, the brain wants to answer, and it makes up all sorts of different connections, some of which have no bearing on the decisions that we made. Some of these have no bearings on our life growing up, have no bearings on who we were and the jobs that we held, but they drastically change how we perceive now. And that's part of that reticular activating system. When we ask a question of ourselves, who am I? And our brain looks back in the past and judges by people that we've known and actions that we've taken and tries to identify what is really important, what is not really important, in terms of our experience and our judgments about what is important or not important. The people we've held close, the people we've let go, the decisions we've made. We create harsh judgment and stories around those to justify ourselves because we don't want to let ourselves down. That's a deep ingrained survival mechanism. You don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to judge too harshly. And when you do, it's because you believe the future will be better if you make yourself feel bad about this. And that's, again, some of that fight or flight training is deeply ingrained behavioral training before the age of 7. And it changes how we view the world. It changes how we identify ourselves and, frankly, the damage that we create in our own psyches as we try to ask these questions and grow from that. So the question is then, can I ask, who am I? Not really, right? Because you don't experience you. everyone around you, whoever interfaces with you, experiences you. And this is one of the reasons that people call reality a mirror, because you can't see you in the world. Others see you. And the way that you understand that is that reflection back from the mirror. You understand you and who you are in terms of how somebody else reacts to you. And yet, this is further complicated. Why? Because I can't see your reaction in terms of your life. And honestly, you accept my reactions, my personality, my brand, my everything through the lens of your life. Who have you known that was like this crazy guy with glasses? Who have you known that's a brand guy? Who have you known that has design background? Who have you known that's worked in advertising and marketing and has these crazy ideas about the way that the quantum field influences who you are, your personality, your growth, your parts, your fractal mind? And it changes that because, thanks, Amanda. Because you can't know, you can't experience you. You can only experience the reflection back from somebody else, and they are experiencing you through their lens. And the trouble is, here's where the real trouble of identity in general happens. They reflect back their interpretation of your communication, your interpretation of everything. So it's distorted. There's constant distortion going on. You do not ever get a true feeling of who you are from the outside in. And yet, that's where most of us look for that sort of confirmation, because in early life, that's what we got. We Hopefully you were born and you felt love from your parents, you felt support, you were a baby, you were a small child, you needed support, you needed love, you needed growth. That's the sort of things that provide a foundation for your own self-confidence, for your own acknowledgement of worth, of value, that you can absolutely accomplish everything. But most of us don't live in that perfect little reality, right? We live in a reality where there's troubles and people get angry and people have their own experiences. My parents had their own experiences that they work through. And what happens there is I, as a small child, I have my core consciousness, that super consciousness, that quantum consciousness that's flowing into the particle nature of my body. I consider that the wave inside the particle. The particle nature is my body. The particle nature is the part of me that keeps growing. The particle is actually the ego, in my view, because the ego is that combination of the stuff in the brain, the physical brain, as well as the unconscious body, cellular memory, gut memory, heart memory, all of these sensations that come up to feed your experience. But when all of that is based in, frankly, my parents' trauma that they were dealing with in their own lives, with each other, with the world, the challenges, the stress that influenced, right, before the age of 7, that theta brainwave that influenced how I perceived life in general, how I perceived who I was in relation to them, how I perceived who I was in relation to the world, in relation to my brother, in relation to strangers, in relation to my community. It changed a lot of that kind of stuff. And then when I went to school, it changed it even further, because I was held to certain expectations of what I needed to do, what I had to do. I had to succeed. I had to be top of the class. I had to really achieve. And if I didn't, every time I brought home C's, I was grounded. And I'll tell you, I got C's a lot in band, of all things. I was third chair clarinet. I got C's in band because I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to spend hours every day practicing. I actually am more of the artist type. I just wanted to flow with it, and I thought I understood the music enough to be able to just go with it. I still love playing clarinet. It's fun. And see, but that changed also how I viewed the world and changed how I viewed practice, and it made practice a thing that was difficult for me. It became a chore. And I share this with you because now you see that changes how you view me and my identity. It's not bad. It just gives you a new perspective on it, something rounder in the way that you see me. And maybe you've had an experience like that in the past for yourself. Maybe you didn't like studying. Maybe you didn't like doing your chores. One of my chores one summer, visiting my dad down in the Florida Keys, was he had, it's like 18 or 20 ferrets. They were running a ferret rescue, and my job every day was to clean out the litter boxes, like 8 of them. I hated that job, but I did it because I was afraid of my dad. That became a big part of my personality. Even if I hate something, I need to do it, because if I didn't do it, I might get yelled at, and if I didn't get yelled at, well, then everything stank. The whole world stank. It really stank. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that, that happens, and it changes who we are, and it changes how I view myself, and it changes how I react to other people who don't do the tasks that they need to do to move things forward. And when they complain, life stinks, life sucks, life blah, 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 I think back to that time and think, okay, yes, but have you done the tasks that you need to do to clean? Have you cleaned out your litter box? Have you cleaned out your litter box? So here's an interesting concept. It's from Reality Transurfing, this book, Reality Transurfing, and it's sort of based around all of this sort of experience and the understanding that you don't experience you. Others experience you, but only through their lens, and when they reflect back, you are judging their reflection based on your experience. So you're not actually getting their full read of your identity. And this is all super fascinating to me, because when we try to build brands, I'm working with people who are building their personal brands. And if you don't understand yourself enough to be able to choose the pieces of you to share appropriately, or choose the pieces of you to clearly communicate outward, a brand is nothing but what the other side is reflecting back at you. So as you work with people and they tell you, Amanda, I'm going to use you because you're on at this moment. So Amanda is awesome. Amanda is amazing, so helpful, so kind, just heartfelt, a blessing on the world. That makes you feel terrific, right? It should. And it's true. I'm sure it's true. And it's important for you to hear things like that, because it helps boost, everything that you know about yourself. It helps create and anchor that identity of that you want to feel in yourself. Yeah, see, that's correct. I knew it. You are enough. You are worthy. You are wonderful. You are magnificent, Amanda. Because we all are. I believe we all are. But we have these things that are trained into us that hold us back. So Reality Transurfing comes in and says, look, there are people in the world that have kind of crappy personalities. And they know it. And it's who they identify by, and they stand by it, and they succeed. And while most of us have been told, fit in, do the work, don't stand out, wear the uniform. See, I'm going counter to uniform today. This is very like Eastern medicine, relaxed, comfy shirt, peasant kind of shirt. See, a lot of people would have a hard time wearing this. I used to have a hard time wearing this because I wanted that suit and tie and slacks and khaki sort of thing. I'm trying to just relax into actually Jeremy-ness right now. So we want to adapt, we want to change, we want to fit in with society, we want to fit in with culture, we want to fit in with our community, with our family, because if we shut up, we don't shake the boat, we just do the things, we keep on the straight and narrow. I mean, this is the corporate line that's been towed for the last 40 years. You do the thing because this is what gets you to the end, that is retirement and death. Was there joy along the way? I hope so. But the whole idea here is that a lot of us are trained into thinking we have to change our identity. We have to change who we are to match the community, to match the corporation, to match the business, to match what other people expect of us, to match so much that's not us. And this book comes in and says, okay, well, what if that's not it? What if you are the identity, that core consciousness within you, is just getting kind of filtered. I mean, this is my filtering net when I do my hands like this. I'm imagining this net, constant nets coming down, filtering out that core consciousness, and that net is made up of the disconnection between the heart and the gut and the cells in your body, the things that, just the skin, the reflection of light, the things that sense within you, electromagnetic fields, light, frequency. Your body is set up to respond to all of these things, and I think that the core consciousness is trying to use it to become who you are, make a purpose, find a purpose, bring a purpose to your life, to your world, and let it shine. But there's a lot of us that are hidden between all of these things, and that's sort of like, and if you're into psychology, it's like parts theory. This idea that there are these little different parts throughout you that are built through the fight or flight response. They're built through this polyvagal theory, through the reaction of the limbic brain, that pieces of you were trained in different ways to behave slightly differently depending on the context. And so we all think we have to fit in order to succeed. We have to change who we are. We have to match somebody else. We have to compare with somebody that we find amazing, awesome, high on the ladder, and do exactly what they did and be exactly who they are. That's what we've been told. And there's a lot of consultants out there pitching this whole idea. You have to change who you are. You have to change internally. You have to change your mind. You have to change your mindset. You have to change all of that stuff. And I believe in some of that. So here comes this alternative theory. Here comes this idea that you should not change who you are. You should not change your identity because you don't even know your identity. You don't experience your identity. You're working with somebody else. They experience what you bring to the world. All you can do is be the best you. And if you were Steve Jobs, he was just the best him, which, as I understand it, was kind of an ass. And Elon Musk, same thing, kind of an ass. Like a lot of the people that we look at today in our culture and say, wow, that person is wealthy, that person is successful, that person has done great. Warren Buffett. These people did not go and change who they were to become what they are. What they did was double down on themselves and said, okay, what is the story that my brain is saying? What is the story that my subconscious is saying? What is the story that my body is saying? What is the story I keep telling myself, an interpretation of my past and who I am? Because I am most certainly acting on that. That's the reticular activating system, that system in the brain that trains us to see the things that we believe to be true. The things that we do not believe to be true, the things that we have no consciousness of being true, are literally downgraded in terms of importance, in terms of the senses that we absorb and see and feel every single second of the day. 10,000 things your brain could pick up every single second, and it prioritizes 40. 40. That's the reticular activating system telling you what's important based on the stories that you tell yourself, because everything you tell yourself, your brain thinks is true. Every single thing. And that's super powerful. It's also super scary, because if you think you need to change, then everything you go for, every goal that you have, everything you do, everything you're trying to see, you're never going to be enough to that subconscious part of your brain and body, right? Now that sucks. Because if you're never enough, this is the classic Buddhist thing. Okay, then I need to not desire. And then I need to desire not to desire. Then I need to desire not to desire, not to desire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You end up just in this loop trying not to be something and then trying to be something, but then you're not something. Wow, that's just too much, right? It's just too much. So the idea in transurfing is don't change. Embrace who you are and what you are. In fact, double down on that core consciousness. Double down on exploring who you are, how you see the world, what makes you unique, how you feel about things. Notice we use feeling at that point, not in the reaction, not in caveman terms, not in that limbic brain, let me survive, oh, saber-toothed tiger sort of thing, but more in how does my body feel about it? And then when I take that to the greater level of my consciousness, my thinking, my enlightened brain, I can say, wow, my body doesn't like that. I feel a lot of tension. I feel a lot of stress. My shoulders inch up, or alternatively, I get these butterflies in my stomach. I get this fluttery, tingly thing in my heart, and that's not bad. And this has a lot of potential for my life. And do I want to do this? Yes, right? We can make those choices. We can interpret how we feel in the body, and then we can actually choose, is this going to improve our life? Is it not going to improve our life? Now, part of what I like about transurfing is it says, look, now when we ask ourselves, what are those feelings doing? Then we can create this frame within our lives, and we can frame this in a couple different ways. I really like how parts theory does this. And parts theory's sort of saying, okay, when you frame this, then a part of you is going, I'm nervous, I'm scared, this isn't familiar, this is different, I don't like being in front of the camera, all these different things going on. And it gives us a chance to say, okay, body, I hear you. I hear you. You're safe. You're cool. Everything's okay. We're just going to keep being us because that's safe. This is secure. We're in a good place. And I'm going to ask you to get on board with where I'm going and how I'm going to do this because I see a lot of potential moving forward in whatever route this is, however I feel about it. I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to integrate with me. Let's work together. I think that you, whatever this part is, in my head I just heard, okay, it's Bob. Bob. See, I'm very imaginative. Bob. Bob, in my whole reaction, to my whole essence, my whole being is saying, okay, I'm a little scared, I'm nervous, I don't know what I'm going to say next. I don't know what that's going to feel like. And my core being, what I'm trying to do here is saying, that's cool, Bob. We're just going to keep being Jeremy. He's a little bit goofy, he's fun, but he knows what he's talking about. He's done a lot of work on this stuff. He's helped a lot of people, so just keep going. And it helps if, Bob, you could get on board with me and keep moving forward because that'll get us through it. And we can both work together moving towards this future. Oh, thanks, Teresa. Hi. And that's the idea here is that we don't need to change. But when we picture the future that we want, because if we believe in visualization, we understand that the brain does not make a difference between past, present, and future, right? So when we think about these things, we concentrate on that vision, and if we can embody it in our senses and sort of take all of these pieces of our identity, who we are, and say, look, we're all going to work together. I want to hear all of me, all of the pieces, all of the thoughts, all these little voices in my head. I respect you all. And all of you are part of me. You are a part of my identity moving forward. I don't want to change. I want to keep being me. Because as long as I'm me and I keep doing me, we can continue down any path, right? This is that quantum field, the wave and the particle. Every path is open. When I give it opportunity for the energy of the universe, this is Abraham Hicks has her vortex. And this is the vortex, is the quantum field. It's everything that can come into your life. But when we're trying to be somebody else, when we can't even experience what our identity is ourselves, when we try to change and be somebody else, it moves all of that further away from us. And when we accept and say, yes, there's some trauma, there's some negative thoughts, there's some other stuff in there, and we're going to work with it. We're going to bring it together and recognize and hold and say, yes, we can move forward because everything's possible for me as long as I am true to me. Then you are more likely to move down that path towards where you want to go. Now, here's how you can use this in terms of your business and building a brand. Because that's where my past is, that's where my history is, that's where my business focus is a lot of the time, is building a brand, helping others build a brand. So here's the key to a brand. Whatever you communicate outwards, because you don't know how it's going to be received, you don't know how it's going to be interpreted, you don't know how it's going to be felt by the other side, and part of the whole idea behind a brand is to create a relationship, a platform of symbiosis, of connection. The way you create connection with anyone, anywhere, is communication. Open a dialogue. Be very clear in the words that you use, sharing who you are and what you do. Be very clear talking to others, asking them about their lives, what they need, what they're like, because then you grow to learn more about them. And when you know more about them and who they are and their identity, then you can communicate even more clearly. You can broaden the subject matter. You can create best friends, right? It expands the possibility of the future. Literally opens up the quantum field. Communication and connection, the energy between people, right? There's a field and energy, and when you get excited with it, it really vibrates, and you can feel it. You start talking faster, you start talking a little bit higher pitch, you start getting so excited, oh my God, I can't believe it. And when you connect, it's amazing. And you can do that in your business, and you can do that with your customers, and you can express all of these things, because what you're looking for in your business, in your brand, is the exact stuff I said earlier. Amanda, you are amazing. You're brilliant. You are so helpful. Teresa, you are worthy. You are lovable. You are just genius. You are enough. Patrick, you're awesome, dude. You are just, you're a hunk, right? When you hear these things back, yeah, I thought you'd like that, Patrick. When you hear these things back, that confirms what I'm putting into the world is resonating with somebody else. It matters. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to create connection. And the best way to do it, communicate. Choose your words, make them work for you. So that's what I've got for today. I do have a program. It's called Manifest Design. That's all about creating a vision, a brand, and finding the right words to talk about who you are and what you're bringing into the world. It caps off with one session of RTT, Rapid Transformation Therapy, to really take all of that vision and lock it into the brain. Since I'm a old school designer, to me, this is creating what you want, locking it, programming it right into the brain in a law of attraction way, right? So it effortlessly starts bringing this stuff and manifesting it right in your life, everything you want. And it's all based around the words that we share with others, creating that communication bridge, creating that channel for the relationship to foster and grow. If this is something that interests you, I invite you to check out my website, www.thinktankcreative.net. And if you would like to dialogue with me, you can send me a direct message or put a little magnet symbol, because I love that thing for the law of attraction, down in the comments. Otherwise, I would love if you liked, shared, did all that kind of stuff, and I will catch you guys next time. Thank you so much. Later.